Welcome to High School Biology. Today we are going to discuss about air. The air, external auditory receptor. Okay. The air is the organ that enables hearing and in mammal's body balance using the vestibular system. In mammals, the air is usually described as having three parts: the outer air, the middle air, and the inner air. The outer air consists of pinna and the air canal. Since the outer air is the only visible portion of the air in most animals, the word air often refers to the external part alone. So, the middle air includes the tympanic cavity and the three ossicles. The inner air sits in the bony labyrinth and contains structures which are key to the several senses. So, the semicircular canal which enable balance and eye tracking when moving, the utricle and the saccule which enable balance when stationary, and the cochlea which enables hearing. The ears of vertebrates are placed somewhat symmetrically on either side of the head, an arrangement that aids sound localization. Okay, let's look at the outer air. The outer air is external portion of the air and includes the fleshy visible pinna, the air canal, and the outer layer of the eardrum. The pinna contains of the curving outer rim called helix, the inner curved rim called the antihelix, and it opens into the air canal, the tragus, as does the facing antitragus. The hollow region in front of the air canal called the concha. The air canal stretches for about 1 inch, or we can say 2.5 centimeter. The first part of the canal is surrounded by the cartilage, while the second part near the eardrum is surrounded by the bone. This bony part is known as the auditory bulla and is formed by the tympanic part of the temporal bone. The skin surrounding the air canal contains ceruminous and the sebaceous glands that produces protective air wax. So the air canal ends at the external surface of the eardrum. So two sets of muscles are associated with the outer air: the intrinsic and the extrinsic muscles. In some mammals, these muscles can adjust the direction of the pinna, but in humans, these muscles have little or no effect. Let's look at the middle air. The middle air lies between the outer air and the inner air. It consists of an air-filled cavity called the tympanic cavity and includes in the three ossicles and their attaching ligaments, the auditory tube, and the round and the oval windows. So the ossicle or three small bones that function together to receive, amplify and transmit the sound from the eardrum to the inner air. The ocicle or the malleus, hammer, and incus, and the stapes. The stapes is the smallest named bone in the body. Okay, so the middle ear also connects to the upper throat at the nasopharynx via the pharyngeal opening of the eustachian tube. So the three ossicles transmits sound from the outer ear to the inner ear. The malleus receives vibrations from the sound on the eardrum, where it is connected longest part by the ligament. It transmits vibrations to the incus, which in turn transmits the vibrations to the small stapes bone. Okay, the wide base of the stapes rests on the oval window. As the stapes vibrates, vibrations are transmitted through the oval window, causing movement of the fluid within the cochlea. So the round window allows for the fluid within the inner ear to move. As the stapes pushes the secondary tympanic membrane, fluid in the inner ear moves and pushes the membrane of the round window out by the corresponding amount into the middle ear. The ossicle helps amplify sound waves by nearly 15 to 20 times. So this is the middle ear. And look at the inner ear. The inner ear sits within the temporal bone in the complex cavity called the Bony Labyrinth. A central area known as the vestibular contains two small fluid-filled recesses, the utricle and saccule. These connect to the semicircular canals and the cochlea. There are three semicircular canals angled at the angles to each other, which are responsible for dynamic balance. The cochlea is spinal shell shaped organ responsible for the sense of the hearing. So these structures together create the membranous labyrinth. The bony labyrinth refers to the bony compartment which contains the membranous labyrinth contained within the temporal bone. The inner ear structurally begins at the oval window, which receives vibrations from the incus of the middle ear. So vibrations are transmitted into the inner ear into fluid filled called endolymph, which fills the membranous labyrinth. The endolymph is situated in the two vestibules, the utricle and the saccule. They eventually transmits to the cochlea as spiral shaped structure. The cochlea consists of three fluid filled spaces. They are the vestibular duct, the cochlear duct, and the tympanic duct. Hair cells responsible for transduction, changing mechanical changes into electrical stimuli, are present in the organ of Corti in the cochlea. Okay, this is about inner ear. Look at the function of the ear. Hearing. Sound waves travel through the outer ear, are modulated by the middle ear, and are transmitted to the vestibulocochlear nerve in the inner ear. This nerve transmits information to the temporal lobe of the brain, where it is registered as sound. Okay, so sound that travels through the outer ear impacts on the eardrum and causes it to vibrate. The three ossicle bones transmit this sound to a second window, the oval window, which protects the fluid-filled inner ear. In detail, the pinna of the outer ear helps to focus a sound which impacts on the eardrum. The malleus rests on the membrane and receives the vibration. This vibration is transmitted along the incus and stapes to the oval window. Two small muscles, the tensor tympani and the stapes, also help modulate noise. The two muscles reflexively contract to dampen excessive vibrations. So vibration of the oval window causes vibration of the endolymph within the vestibule and the cochlea. The inner ear houses the apparatus necessary to change the vibrations transmitted from the outside world via the middle ear into signals passed along the vestibulocochlear nerve to the brain. The hollow channels of the inner ear are filled with liquid and contains a sensory epithelium that is studded with hair cell. The microscopic hairs of these cells are structural protein filaments that protects out into the fluid. The hair cells are mechanoreceptors that release a chemical neurotransmitter when stimulated. Sound waves moving through the fluid flow against the receptor cells of the organ of the corti. Okay, so the fluid pushes the filament of individual cells. Movement of the filaments causes the receptor cells to become open the receive of the potassium rich. So endolymph, potassium rich endolymph. This causes the cell to depolarize and create an action potential that is transmitted along the spinal ganglion, which sends information through the auditory portion of the vestibulocochlear nerve to the temporal lobe of the brain. Okay. The human ear can generally hear sounds within frequency between 20 Hz to 20 kHz, the audio range. Okay. Sounds outside this range are considered infrasound, below 20 Hz, or ultrasound above 20 kHz. Although hearing requires an intact and functioning auditory portion of the central nervous system as well as working ear, human deafness, extreme insensitivity to sound, most commonly occurs because of the abnormalities of the inner ear rather than in the nerves or tract of the central auditory system. So this is all about the ear, human ear. So thank you guys, thanks for watching.